What happens when a bakery CEO goes undercover and sees expired ingredients being reused in the muffins he just helped stock? Callum Carter had inherited the bakery chain from his father 5 years ago. 15 locations across 3 states, known for fresh pastries, friendly staff, and morning smells that could stop traffic. Callum had spent years expanding it, modernizing systems, and trusting district managers to oversee day-to-day operations. But lately, something felt off. Sales dipped at a few locations, and an anonymous employee complaint had mentioned corners being cut. The report was vague, but Callum couldn't shake it. He picked one of the stores flagged with inconsistent inventory numbers, Store 12, a mid-sized location on the edge of town. He'd never met the team there. Most of his employees only knew him from company memos or the occasional video update. That anonymity was about to work in his favor. With a trimmed beard, brown-tinted contacts, and a name tag that read Jake, he stepped in posing as a new stock trainee. His story was simple. Corporate was sending out new hires for hands-on training shifts. He wore a plain black hat low over his face and avoided eye contact when possible. "Morning," said a short, wiry man in his 50s with a clipboard. "I'm Darren, store manager. You're the new guy." Callum nodded. "Yeah, Jake. They told me to start on stock duty." "They always do," Darren muttered without looking up. "Follow me." The back room was cramped. Shelves of flour, sugar, and plastic-wrapped trays of pastries lined the walls. A young woman, no more than 25, was sorting through a box of croissants. "That's Sierra. She's been here a while. She'll show you where everything goes," Darren said, then walked off. Sierra looked up and gave a quick smile. "Hey, welcome to the circus." Callum smiled back. "Thanks." First day. They started unloading boxes together. She moved with quiet speed and care, checking expiration dates before placing anything on the prep shelf. "Always double-check these," she said, holding up a box of blueberry scones. "They tend to mix in the close dated ones with the new stock." "Darren doesn't like tossing anything." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, lowered her voice. "Just don't say anything. But last week he made me use cream that expired 2 days ago. Said, 'It's still good. Just stir it.'" Callum's stomach turned. "Is that normal here?" Sierra gave a tight shrug. "I try to toss what I can when he's not looking, but he watches us like hawks. We're always short-staffed. 2 people quit last month." "Why?" he asked. "He overworks the team. Yells if you're even 5 minutes late. And if you bring up safety stuff, he calls you soft." Callum stayed quiet, but inside, he was boiling. He helped Sierra stock the rest of the shipment. Everything felt rushed, disorganized. Twice, Darren barked at another employee, a nervous-looking kid named Luis, for taking forever to sweep the front. Around noon, things got worse. Darren came into the back room holding a tray of cinnamon rolls. "These were made yesterday. Still look fine. Slice 'em up and put 'em with the new batch." Sierra frowned. "They're over 24 hours old." "That's not." "Do it," Darren snapped. "Or you can clock out early." Callum stepped back, pretending to be busy unpacking a box, but his hands clenched. Later, while Sierra was wiping down the counters, Darren pulled Callum aside. "You're new, so listen up. We don't waste product here. If something's close to expired, we use it. Cream, fruit, even frosting. If it smells okay, it's good." "Got it." Callum met his eyes. "Even if it's past the date? You want to keep this job or not?" Callum gave a careful nod and walked away. But inside, his decision was made. That night, he sat in his car outside the store long after close. He watched as Sierra helped Luis carry boxes to the dumpster, even though it wasn't her shift. He rubbed his face, eyes heavy. "What the hell happened to this place?" he whispered. He knew what came next. He was going to watch more, gather proof, and then burn this down from the inside. But first he had to show up again tomorrow. The next morning, Callum arrived 15 minutes early and waited outside the bakery's side entrance, watching the sunrise filter through the clouded windows. Sierra pulled up a little later, parking her dented sedan at the far end of the lot. She stepped out slowly, sipping from a thermos, and didn't notice him until she reached the door. "Jake, right?" she said, pulling her hoodie tighter. "You're early. Figured I'd get a head start," he replied, keeping his voice relaxed. Inside, the backroom lights flickered to life. Callum offered to start restocking the front while Sierra got the prep counter ready. As he moved trays of fresh muffins and danishes into the display case, he heard Luis enter, dragging a mop bucket behind him. His shoulders looked weighed down by something more than fatigue. "You all right?" Callum asked. Luis hesitated. "Didn't sleep much. Got called in last night to cover someone's shift at the other location. Didn't get home till 2. Callum paused, concerned. "You're scheduled here again today?" Luis nodded. "Darren said he was short. Said if I didn't come in, he'd cut my Friday hours." Before Callum could respond, Darren stormed in through the front, tossing his keys on the counter with a loud clatter. He looked around, eyes narrowed. "Why isn't the register drawer counted yet?" he barked. "I was just about to do it," Luis said, wiping his hands on his apron. "Don't just about me. You've been here 10 minutes. Move." Luis flinched, then shuffled behind the counter. Darren turned to Callum. "You, the cases look like garbage. Move the raspberry bars to the top row. Put the scones beside them. That's the way I told you yesterday." Callum nodded without replying and shifted the trays. Darren watched for a few seconds, then disappeared into the office. By mid-morning, the line at the counter wrapped around the entrance. Luis handled the register while Sierra prepped drinks. Callum ran between the back and front, refilling trays as fast as he could. The pace was relentless. At one point, a middle-aged customer leaned over the counter and pointed at a lemon tart. "Is this fresh?" Luis looked at it quickly. "Yes, it was made this morning." The woman frowned. "It looks dry around the edges." Luis glanced toward Sierra, unsure. She stepped in smoothly. "We can replace it with one from the second batch." "Just a moment." The woman huffed but nodded. As Sierra reached for a new tart, Darren appeared behind them. "Why are you giving her another one?" Sierra kept her voice measured. "She said the first one looked dry." "I thought, she can take what's there or leave. We don't waste product because someone doesn't like the look of it." Callum watched the woman's face harden. She turned without another word and walked out. Darren didn't seem to care. "Unbelievable," he muttered, heading back into the kitchen. Sierra pressed her lips together, then went back to brewing coffee. Callum waited until the rush eased before catching Luis near the sink. "Does that kind of thing happen a lot here?" Luis nodded once. "If a customer complains, Darren blames us. Doesn't matter what actually happened. Has anyone reported it?" Luis gave a tired half-laugh. "To who? HR is just a voicemail. I tried once. Never heard back." Callum walked away, jaw tight. He knew exactly where those voicemails went and whose desk they were supposed to land on. Somewhere along the line, someone had stopped listening. After lunch, Callum was assigned to help with inventory. Darren handed him a clipboard and a list, then pointed toward the storage freezer. "Mark down whatever looks low, and don't screw up the counts. I don't have time to double-check your work." The freezer was cramped and overstocked. As Callum moved boxes aside, he spotted an unlabeled bin shoved behind a stack of frozen bagels. Inside were several containers of cream cheese too, with visible mold around the lids. He took a photo with his phone, careful not to draw attention, then returned to the front. As he passed the prep station, he caught Sierra quietly washing a mixing bowl with one hand while holding her phone in the other. She looked pale. "Everything okay?" he asked. She glanced up, startled. "Yeah. Just got a text from my roommate. Our rent's going up next month." "Sorry to hear that." She shrugged. "It's fine. I'll figure something out." Callum wanted to ask more, but Darren's voice cut through the air again. "Luis, why are there only 5 trays of muffins out? We're supposed to have 6. "I thought we were short on batter," Luis said. "You thought wrong. Go prep another batch. And don't waste time weighing it. Just eyeball it." Sierra stepped in. "That's not how we've been doing it. If we don't weigh..." Darren raised a hand. "I gave an order. If you want to be the one explaining low sales again at the next staff meeting, be my guest." She stiffened, then turned away. Callum had seen enough. After close, he waited until the others had left. Darren was still in the office, typing something on the computer. Callum stepped in and shut the door behind him. "What are you doing?" Darren asked. "I'm ending this." Darren frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Callum pulled off his hat, then reached into his pocket and slid out his ID. He laid it on the desk. Darren stared at it, then back at him. "You're joking." "No. I'm Callum Carter, owner and CEO." Darren's face drained of color. I didn't know. You said your name was..." "I lied, because I needed to see what was happening in this store without anyone putting on a show." Darren opened his mouth, but Callum held up a hand. "I've heard enough. Reusing expired food, threatening employees, ignoring safety, pushing people to work beyond their limits. You've created a toxic mess here, and you've done it under my name. You don't understand. We're understaffed. I've been trying to keep this place running. By scaring people into silence? By risking customer health." Callum stood. "You're done. Effective immediately." Darren stood too, eyes wide. "You can't." "I just did. I'll have someone from corporate here tomorrow to handle the transition. Turn in your keys." Darren's hands shook as he set them down. Callum walked out without another word. Outside, Sierra and Luis were still by the dumpster, tossing out the last of the trash. They looked up in surprise as he approached. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice steady. "I'm not Jake. I'm Callum. I own this company." Neither spoke. "I came here because something wasn't right, and I saw more than I expected. You've both been doing more than your share under impossible conditions." Luis blinked. "So you saw what he was doing?" "I did. He's gone. Starting tomorrow, this store gets a new manager and a new operating budget. You're getting more staff, and safer prep standards are coming back immediately." Sierra folded her arms, eyes guarded. "What about the rest of us?" "You'll be heard. I'm installing a direct line to my office for store-level reports. No more voicemails into a black hole." Luis exhaled slowly. "Thank you." Callum nodded. "You deserve better, and I'm going to make sure you get it." He walked to his car in silence, the weight of what he'd seen still heavy but no longer ignored. The next morning, Callum arrived at Store 12 without the disguise, clean-shaven, in a slate gray pullover and dark jeans. The front windows were still dark. Opening shift hadn't begun yet. He waited in his car until a white crossover pulled into the lot. A man in his early 40s stepped out, briefcase in hand, dark coat flapping in the wind. "Colin," Callum said, stepping out to meet him. "Thanks for coming on short notice." Colin Myers, regional compliance manager, had been with the company for nearly 9 years. He wasn't flashy, but he was thorough and direct, 2 things Callum valued now more than ever. Colin glanced at the store. "You sure you want to do this face-to-face?" "I need to. The staff deserves to see me as myself." Colin gave a single nod. Let's get it done. By the time they walked in, Sierra was at the register, setting up the till. Her eyes darted to Callum, then lingered. A small pause passed, and then she gave a faint nod before returning to her task. Luis entered from the back, still adjusting his apron. He froze when he saw them, then looked toward Sierra, who gave him a subtle glance of reassurance. "Morning," Callum said. "I won't keep you long, but I want to be clear." He waited until both were fully tuned in. "Darren no longer works here. Colin is here to oversee the transition. A new manager will be assigned by next week. But until then, this store is under direct supervision from corporate." Sierra folded her arms but didn't speak. Luis shifted his weight but said nothing either. "I know trust isn't something I can ask for overnight," Callum continued, "but you'll see changes, starting with safety, scheduling, and food handling. I'm not here to patch holes, I'm here to rebuild properly." Colin stepped forward. "Until the new manager is installed, I'll be doing daily check-ins and will handle all scheduling. You'll also get a written update by the end of today outlining revised procedures." Sierra finally spoke. "Are we allowed to toss anything that's questionable now, without getting written up?" "Not only allowed," Callum said, "expected. And if you're ever told otherwise, you come straight to me." Luis looked up. "What about our hours? Darren used to cut them if we asked questions." Colin answered, "All shift schedules will now go through me. No one here will lose hours for speaking up." That seemed to land. Callum didn't expect gratitude, just attention, and it seemed he had it. He excused himself and moved to the back office. Colin followed, closing the door behind them. "Inventory records are inconsistent," Colin said, flipping open his notebook. "There's a gap in freezer logs and waste reports. I ran the last 30 days. Darren was underreporting expired product and logging fake disposal entries." Callum leaned against the desk. "Is it traceable?" "Somewhat. Not enough to press legal action, but it's enough to trigger an internal audit." "Do it," Callum said, quietly. "I don't want the rest of the team dragged through this." Colin made a note. "There's something else." I pulled staffing records. This location was flagged for short coverage 6 separate times in the last 2 months. HR signed off on each of them. Callum narrowed his eyes. "That shouldn't have happened." "I checked who signed off. It was Janice. She's your regional HR manager." Callum ran a hand over his face. "She signed off on understaffing? That's not just negligence." Colin's tone stayed even. "She's been approving minimum coverage levels under budget pressure. Not just here. 3 other stores too. Set a meeting with her for tomorrow. Face to face." Colin nodded once. Outside the office, the morning rush began to trickle in. A young couple ordered coffees and muffins. Sierra handled them with quiet efficiency. Luis manned the espresso machine. The tone was subdued, but lighter than it had been. Callum stayed in the background, watching how the team moved. There was no wasted motion, no eye-rolling, no dragging feet. They were professionals just starved of leadership. Mid-morning, a delivery van pulled up. The driver, a stocky man with a clipboard, entered and looked around. "Where's Darren?" he asked. Callum stepped forward. "He's no longer with the company. I'm Callum Carter." The driver blinked. "I didn't realize, all right. Here's the order sheet." Callum took a look. "Do you normally verify dates with the receiving staff?" "Usually. Darren used to sign off without checking. From now on, nothing gets accepted without date verification." "Got it. Understood." Callum brought Sierra to help inspect the shipment. As they checked the boxes together, she glanced at him. "You were really here the whole time?" He nodded. "I had to see it myself." She didn't respond right away. Then, "You saw enough?" "I saw too much to ignore." I've worked here 4 years, she said. I used to love it, but lately it's been survival mode. That's not how it should be. Callum closed the last box. It won't be anymore. Later in the day, Colin brought in a temporary assistant manager from another location, someone with a clean record and tenured experience. She introduced herself to the team and immediately asked Sierra and Luis about their preferred roles during peak hours. Callum didn't stay for the entire shift. He left midway through afternoon prep, letting the team settle into the new rhythm without being watched. But before he walked out, he paused at the front counter. Luis looked up from the register. "You doing all right?" Callum asked. "I think so. Feels different today." Callum nodded once. "If that ever changes, you let me know." Luis hesitated. "Can I ask something?" "Of course. Why'd you do it?" "Go undercover, I mean." Callum's answer came without hesitation. "Because people like you deserved better. And I stopped seeing that from where I was sitting." Luis didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. As Callum stepped into the parking lot, Colin joined him. "Want me to stay full-time here for the week?" "No. Rotate between this and the other flagged stores. I need to know if the same things are happening elsewhere." Colin nodded. "What about Janice?" "I'll handle her." Callum got into his car, started the engine, and sat for a moment. The smell of baked bread still clung to his coat. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel weighed down by it. There was still more to fix. But today the rot had been cut. And that was a start. The following week began with rain. Not a heavy storm, just a steady curtain of drizzle that blurred windshields and soaked shoes. Callum arrived early to the downtown office, a narrow 3-story building tucked between a coffee roaster and a print shop. He didn't stop at his own office. Instead, he went directly to human resources. Janice was already there, seated behind her glass-top desk, flipping through a stack of schedules. Her blazer hung on the door. She looked up when he entered, startled but composed. "You asked to see me," she said. Callum sat across from her. "I reviewed the staffing approvals for the past 2 months. I saw your sign-offs. I've been managing according to the budget constraints you set," she replied, calm and clipped. "No," he said. "You bypassed policy. Store 12 was operating below minimum staffing for weeks. That's not a budgeting issue. That's negligence." She shifted slightly. "I had to make choices. We're tight across the region. You authorized unsafe staffing levels," he cut in. "And you signed off on it without notifying me or compliance. That's not a choice. That's a breach of responsibility." She exhaled, but her voice didn't waver. "I've been doing this job for nearly 15 years. I don't need to be micromanaged." Callum stood. "You won't be. You're being dismissed, effective immediately. Colin will process the paperwork." Her eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake." "No. I made one by not catching this sooner." He left without waiting for a response. Colin met him in the hall, already aware. "She's packing up," Colin said. "I'll make sure her access is revoked before noon." "Good. Move someone from legal into acting HR oversight for now. We'll do a full review of regional practices." He didn't stop moving. There was too much to repair. By Thursday, Store 12 had a new interim manager, a quiet but capable woman named Renee who had transferred from one of the company's flagship locations. She didn't make speeches. She watched, adjusted workflows, and asked questions without judgment. Luis responded immediately. His speed improved, but more importantly, he stopped glancing over his shoulder after every task. Sierra was slower to warm up, but by the 3rd day, she was offering suggestions on how to streamline prep time without cutting corners. Callum returned that Friday, not undercover, not announced, just present. He stayed in the background, observing. Renee caught his eye once but didn't interrupt her rhythm. She was helping a new hire, a teenager named Arlo, learn how to rotate stock properly. "What's the difference between best buy and use by again?" Arlo asked, squinting at a label. "Best buy is about quality. Use by is about safety. If it's past that date, we don't use it. No exceptions." Callum nodded to himself. That was the right answer, said the right way. Later, he found Sierra wiping down the cold case. Her sleeves were rolled past her elbows, and her apron was streaked with flour. She looked up but didn't stop working. "Renee's good," she said. "Different kind of quiet." "She's staying for at least another month," Callum replied. "After that, she'll help us choose someone permanent." Sierra rinsed her rag and leaned on the counter. "I've had jobs where they just replace the bad boss and disappear. New person ends up doing the same things. That's not going to happen here." She tilted her head. "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm not disappearing." He wasn't bluffing. That morning, he'd finalized a rotation plan. Every store would receive a quarterly visit from someone in the executive tier, not as a tour, but as a working shift. Stocking, serving, cleaning. No press releases. No announcements. Just presence. Sierra gave the smallest nod. "Then maybe I'll stick around a while longer." By the following Monday, the changes began rolling out system-wide. Each store received a revised operations handbook with highlighted changes. No expired inventory permitted on shelves, zero tolerance for retaliatory scheduling, and protected reporting channels that bypassed local management. The reporting line went directly to compliance with a copy to Callum's desk. Each team also received a letter brief and direct signed by Callum himself. It acknowledged the failures, laid out the corrections, and committed to transparency moving forward. He kept one copy pinned in his office, just above his monitor. Not as a statement, but as a reminder. Back at Store 12, the culture began to shift in small, visible ways. Luis started bringing in playlists for the morning open. Nothing loud, just enough to keep the prep line energized. Arlo asked to shadow Sierra during slow hours, and she agreed without hesitation. Renee instituted 10-minute breathers between rushes, not breaks, just moments to regroup. Callum returned one last time that month, unannounced as always. He didn't ask for feedback. He just worked. He restocked trays, wiped counters, and helped Arlo carry in a late shipment. After the lunch rush, he stepped outside to take a call. When he came back in, Sierra was by the espresso machine, teaching Arlo how to steam milk without burning it. "You'll scorch it if you rush," she said. "Let it roll gently. You'll hear the difference." Callum watched for a moment, then approached the counter. Renee was nearby, sorting receipts. She looked up. "You planning to keep working shifts?" she asked, eyes steady. "Yeah," he said. "I think I need to." She didn't argue. As he stepped behind the counter to help close up, Luis passed him a rag. "You know," he said, "when you first showed up, I thought you were just some guy trying not to get yelled at." "I was," Callum replied, smiling for the first time all day. Luis nodded once. "Glad you didn't stay that way." They finished cleaning in silence. No one rushed to leave. No one walked on eggshells. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was honest. And that was enough to build from. When Callum finally locked the door behind him that evening, the rain had returned. He pulled his jacket tighter and glanced back through the glass, where the last lights flickered off one by one. The smell of sugar and coffee lingered in the air, but for the first time in weeks, it wasn't bitter.